Welcome back to Genuinely LAS. My name is Luke, and courtesy of Genesis UK, I have this GV60 for the next 10 days. And I think this is a really interesting car because I don't think it really has a direct competitor as such. Size-wise, it's nice and compact, like for example, an Audi Q4. When you look at the wheelbase from the interior space, the size is more similar to an Audi Q6 e-tron. It's kind of carved out a bit of a niche for itself. When it was first released in 2023, I wasn't the biggest fan of the looks especially. I've also become more intrigued by premium EVs. I drove a Lexus RZ, which was a good car in many respects, but really let down in others. Now, I think the GV60 could have beaten the Lexus at its own game. Now, you may not know this, but the GV60 is actually a very important car for Genesis. It's the second best seller behind the GV70, which benefits from having petrol, diesel, and electric variants. And if you set those petrol and diesel variants aside and just focus on the EVs, I really like the proposition of the GV60, especially because it's on the eGMP platform that's spread between the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6 and the Kia EV6 and the EV9. It's a bespoke EV platform, and the benefits of that you see a little bit on the outside, but you really see when we get onto the inside. Let's delve into some key stats. This is the base model GV60, the GV60 Premium, starting at just over £53,000. This is my pick of the range. Firstly, because it's just a rear-wheel drive car, so it's only got a single motor, you get more battery life. You also get the smaller rims, 19-inch alloys, which I still think look fantastic on this car. Because of that, not only does it ride better, but you also get better efficiency. And the Michelin Primacy 4 tyres help with this as well, because they can improve range by up to 10%. So the single motor in this produces 225 horsepower, and that gives you 0 to 60 of just under 8 seconds, which compared to some similar sized rivals for a similar price isn't very fast. But I actually think it's the dream situation in terms of speed and performance in an EV, because it's not fast enough to make yourself feel overly sick or make your passengers feel sick with an intense bout of acceleration for a car that weighs over 2 tons. It's perfectly present around town. You still get instant torque, you still get the drivability of an EV. The fastest GV60 will take you from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. So there's quite a wide array of different performance options you can go for the GV60, but I still think the premium base model for me is the one I would go for. Range in this is 329 miles. Because it's a single motor, this is the most you can get. As we know, if you increase the size of the rims and you add another motor to the axle that doesn't have one on the base model, range comes plummeting down pretty quickly. But still, 229 miles is very decent. For most people, it'll be more than enough. Now, if you want to hold out for a little bit longer and wait for the facelifted car, this has a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. And if rumours are correct, and based on the fact that updated versions of the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 got the new 84 kilowatt hour battery, you probably get more range if you hold out a little bit longer. But the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery is still a beefy boy, and it'll get you where you need to go. The eGMP platform was also developed to be able to handle 800 volt and 400 volt architectures, which means you can charge this car from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. So in terms of competitors for this is where I think things get a little bit interesting. Size-wise, on the outside at least, you kind of are looking at Tesla Model Y, Nissan Ariya, Mercedes EQB, Audi Q4, maybe you could squeeze in the Lexus RZ 300e as well. But interestingly enough, when I was really delving into the dimensions of this car, yes, lengthwise it's kind of in the same ballpark as those cars, but the wheelbase is actually pretty massive. And I think the eGMP platform has really enabled Hyundai the Hyundai group to push the wheels out as far as possible to maximize cabin space. So compared to all the rivals I've just mentioned, the wheelbase of this is 20 centimeters more, which means at 6'5", I can sit behind myself with space to spare, which is pretty incredible considering the size of this thing. It's actually not very big at all. And that means wheelbase-wise, it competes with the bigger brothers of some of those competitors. So instead of the Q4 e-tron, the Q6 e-tron. Instead of the iX1, the iX3. Why I find that interesting is, on the whole, the GV60 costs more than the rivals of the similar size, I said iX1, Nissan Ariya, Q4 e-tron. but it's cost less than the Q6 e-tron, the iX3 and the Lexus RZ 450e anyway. And then if we delve into the boot space, the boot is smaller in this than the larger rivals, and I find that interesting because it puts the Genesis in a bit of a world of its own. What I'm really excited to find out as well is how different the Genesis is to the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 and the Kia EV6. The reason being is that the Genesis is essentially the luxurious sibling of those cars. And having driven the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ioniq 5N and the Hyundai Ioniq 6, I want to know what's been done differently here to justify the near £15,000 price increase between this, a base model GV60 and a base model Hyundai Ioniq 5. It always interests me. I know it's a little bit different in the Volkswagen group, but the Cupra and Volkswagen products are very, very similar to each other. And I guess it's only really the Audi that really pushes past and goes to a different level. Does this do the same? I really hope so. It's a big price tag. Boot space is an interesting point on the GV60 for, well, a couple of simple reasons. This, again, is the reason why I don't really think it has a direct competitor. The boot with the seats up is only 432 litres, and the seats down 1,550 litres. It only beats the Polestar 2 and the Nissan Ariya for boot space, which is a little bit of a shame, but again, it's not a massive surprise because this is a compact design, and you can see it the moment you look at the car, it looks compact compared to the others. At 432 litres, the boot is still pretty big, and considering I'll be using this to throw my camping gear for 3 nights, if it can fit that, then I'm pretty sure it'll be decent enough size for me. I think the benefits you get from having a bigger boot only really come with the much larger cars. So the Q6 e-tron, for example, under the false floor is a place to store your charging cables more than anything. So all in all, honestly, it is compact. If you would like a much bigger boot, I'd say I think you'd have to probably go for a larger rival. Now, it could be a load in this, but I think this is probably the part of the car where I'm least happy. Firstly, this right here, I'd say is outside here, it's a pretty cool design. But when you're sat in the rear, what I have noticed is if you were to try and get out of the car and you were just to check over your shoulder to see if you're safe to do so, it is quite a large blind spot because this isn't glass. The glass ends here, so all of this feels like it blocks your view, which isn't super ideal. We also have this spoiler. It reminds me a little bit of the spoiler in the Ioniq 6. I think it looks more at home here. I think the refresh of the Ioniq 6 shows that it really didn't need it in the first place. But I can't really imagine the Genesis GV60 without it, and I'm sure that it would look a little bit too slippery in a way. We also get roof rails on this car. It's included with a sunroof pack, which gives you the fixed sunroof and the roof rails for £1,100. Again, it's an option that I definitely get because it provides a nice bit of light into the cabin, and the roof rails, if you need them, it'd be really helpful to have them. Well, to put it mildly, stepping into the front of the GV60 is literally like stepping into an oasis. It is incomparable to the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 and even the Ioniq 6, and it really reminds me of the Lexus RZ I sat in. It is stunning in here. I'm staggered by how nice every material you touch is. I'd say the only thing you do touch which feels like the cheaper plastic is the center, well, the horn on the car. If I'm honest, yeah, there's obviously cheap plastics around the cabin, but they're either out of reach, like just behind the steering wheel, or the very size and bottom of the floating island, or just where your feet are. And I should also say, floor of the GV60, yes, there are car mats over it now, but it's a carpet floor. It feels like you're sat in a room in a house, in a very nice house rather than being a car. We've also got this disco style, disco pop feature on the top. I'm not sure what to think of it. I do like it because it works when you see it dotted around the cabin. There's a little band of it on the main dash. It just keeps the cabin nice and light. If this was a black, it would definitely dull the cabin down. Because that's like the rest of the cabin's light, it works. It works with the silver buttons as well. In the GV60, it's all artificial leather. But I mean, it's hard to even know where to start, but I'll try and make my way around the cabin. Starting with the steering wheel, it feels so nice. The leather feels soft to the touch and give it a little press. All the buttons on the wheel are physical. And not only that, they feel nicely weighted. They feel nice and heavy. There's a quality to them every time you press them. It doesn't feel like any cost has been spared on this arrangement or any of the buttons actually throughout the cabin or any of the switches. It all feels as I said, It all feels over-engineered in the best way possible. To change the mirrors, you've got a lovely little toggle thing which you can twist and turn. It feels so unnecessary, and it almost feels like Genesis is showing off the quality of their interiors. Just like, look at what we can do. You get a drive mode button on the steering wheel, just like more and more performance cars nowadays. On the back, we've got paddles which you can use for our brake regeneration. They feel so nice to touch. You can hear that, just that noise sums up the quality of those paddles and just of the rest of the interior. So inside of the car, they've wanted to have this design philosophy around like a floating island. And I think as well, this shows off the fact that this is a bespoke EV platform. There's no need for a transmission tunnel or anything like that. And because of that, you get this incredible center console that houses some pretty important buttons. Your volume controls, some of your menu buttons, your heated and ventilated front seats, your ability to toggle, take off parking sensors, put on all of your cameras, auto hold, heated steering wheel. We also have a bit of a party piece, which is the gear selector. When the car's off, you just get this nice glass looking sphere. And when you turn the car on, that spins around, literally like something out of James Bond. You've got the color, you've got the gear selector. We're flying on the James Bond Association. And let's talk about the screens as well. So we have a 12.3 inch driver's screen and a 12.3 inch main infotainment display. On the infotainment display, you can use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly. I have initially been trying to not use those two very much and just focus on the car's infotainment system. And so far, it's been really good, actually. You can, when you're putting in a route, it will tell you not only what the fastest route is, but what is a recommended route, what boosts your range. So far, I haven't had that much discrepancy in the recommended versus fastest route, but I'm sure, as you can imagine, that really does fluctuate, especially when you've got more motorway miles in your route. A big advantage to using the in-car sat-nav versus Apple CarPlay or Google Maps, the direction of the sat-nav can be shown not only as augmented reality on the screen in front of you, but also on the heads-up display. So much work has been done, you can clearly see, to make the Genesis GV60 feel different. As I said, it feels like an oasis in here. You're shut off from the rest of the world in your nice wraparound cabin. Onto that, the seating position feels really nice. You feel like you're sat quite in the car rather than on top of it, but you also get a really nice view over the bonnet. So it feels like the bonnet's quite high and you're sat relatively low. So you can really see the arches of both sides, which helps you to place the car, especially around town. And as I said, because the car has relatively short overhangs, you really feel like you know where the car ends on the front and the rear. Moving on to the climate control, hallelujah, most of it is physical buttons. There are a couple of small buttons that aren't. The most important controls include changing the temperature, front windscreen, rear screen, syncing up the climate control. They're all physical. And the switch to change the temperature has a nice click to it whenever you move it. It's hard to emphasize the quality in here. As I said, the Lexus RZ in my mind is one of the most accurate comparisons, but I think this trumps it because the Lexus RZ really relied quite heavily on a dominant screen in the middle. But in here you get the sense that we really wanted to minimize how much the screens are involved and really focus on physical buttons, because in my mind, and probably your mind as well, a good quality physical button will always trump a non-haptic feedback touchscreen. We also get a nice chunky center armrest, which opens up to give you a decent bit of space. And then just under it, you get a wireless charging pad for your phone, which has been pretty effective so far. You get two cup holders on your floating island, and we also have a little swivel wheel controller for the main infotainment screen. Now, I'm still working out how best to use this swivel wheel. It feels like it can do quite a lot, but I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed by it right now. And so far, I've only been using infotainment whilst I've been stationary, so I've not had to rely on it too much just yet. The seats as well, super comfortable. Adjustable headrest, which is really nice. So it feels like you really have a lot of comfort going on. The passenger seat can also recline itself through a button on the dash, because I can imagine it'd be really nice, sat charging the car just to be having a nice little kit for the 20 minutes it takes to get to 80%. There are electric controls to adjust the chairs. I can also adjust the passenger chairs from buttons on the side. Nice and ideal, especially if you're in the car alone. Another benefit of having no drivetrain tunnel and having this floating island is you have that massive stretch of a gap from my side to the passenger side. There's no transmission tunnel blocking. I can stick my arm and make a little circle loop under the island. Very nice. It feels like there's so much space. You could probably fit another bag in that gap. But you think that's the end? It is not. There are more benefits to the lack of drivetrain tunnel. And that is a storage you get underneath. You get a storage bin at the very front of the car. You get a storage bin just under the island. I think, imagine you have the dash of a car usually. In a really efficient way, Genesis has sculpted out or carved out space for your feet, for example. So the passenger footwell is gigantic. It is massive. You can easily get your legs and the bag between them. So even more storage space. We get a nice glove box, not super deep, still deep enough. And as we go onto the road, the Oasis feel continues because dotted around the car, the Genesis has an active acoustic control system in motion. And when I was reading up about it, that did sound like a little bit of a gimmick. The idea that it kind of cancels out road noise and all of this, like, okay, but I'll believe when I see it. And boy, oh boy, do I believe it. I don't really know how it works, if I'm completely honest, but what I do know is when I've been driving on the motor or just driving around town, I've had the music on, you can barely hear anything going on around you. When the active control is working and you've got music on or whatever, you just don't really hear it. It feels so serene whilst you're driving along. It's such a comforting place to be. The footrest you get is massive. Compared to the brake and the accelerator, my left leg feels like it's in a different postcode. Incredible. I think it looks really smart on the outside, but it's only when you sit inside it do you really appreciate the work the Genesis have done to really, firstly, push it away from Hyundai and Kia siblings, but also have it nipping at the toes of cars that are only not just bigger, but more expensive than it. I think if you ever have doubts as to why this car starts at 53k or why this car specifically is 61k, to me, most of my thoughts on that were alleviated when I sat inside here and went for like literally a 5-minute drive in it. Oh, hello, it's tightened me in. Happy days. Right, let's get moving. If I could sum up driving the GV60 in 3 words so far, I'll go relaxing, peaceful and serene. Not only, as I've said, because of the active noise control, but it also uses a camera and the radar at the front of the car to read the road and electronically adjust the suspension. Which means that over this road and over roads I've been on, which are normally pretty unpleasant to drive on, the GV60 feels like it rides over them so well. Yes, you do notice you're going through them, but it just feels so much smoother and doesn't thud into them like you would do in other cars. You sometimes forget this car weighs over 2 tons. This is where the car's really in its element, in my opinion. Just loitering around town is so effortless and easy. The steering wheel is also so light, not too airy, and you still feel a little bit of directness when you need it, but for the most part it just feels really effortless to drive, and I think that's what this car does so well. And that's a great little segue to the battery regeneration in this car. Like all EVs, it has battery regeneration. In this we have 4 different levels. Level 4, the strongest one, is 1 pedal driving, which is great. For me personally, I don't love battery regen or lots of battery regen because you feel that you're driving along with a handbrake on sometimes. It's nice and progressive. This car is technically a little bit underpowered compared to its rivals. I mean, for example, the base Tesla Model Y, and I think the base Polestar will easily get to from 0 to 60 in 1 or 2 seconds faster than this. But just on a normal driving day on a normal road, but at no point does this GV60 feel slow. It's got 350 Newton meters of torque. It definitely has enough power. One of the added extras on this car is the innovation pack. £2,800, making it easily the most expensive pack on the menu. But it's also my favorite pack because it gives you all the assistance and tech to make you feel like you're in a premium car. It does have bits like the blind spot assist, heads up display, lane keep assist, front and rear collision assist, and that'll be the speed sign recognition assist, which actually isn't too bad in this car. But we're getting distracted from the main and probably my favorite elements of the innovation pack in terms of the assistance features. This car has the ability, the GV60 has the ability to drive with level 2 autonomous driving. Whilst you're driving around on the motorway, the car will steer itself. So one, it'll keep itself in lanes, and second, it'll keep itself a decent distance to the car in front. And that lane keep assist, importantly to me anyway, isn't very invasive. It doesn't ever feel like it's yanking the steering wheel out of your hands. If you indicate, the car will first of all notify you it's moving on the screen, and it will ease you into the right-hand lane. It feels like a magic trick. And I really don't think it's actually very gimmicky at all. And I think it's actually something I will use quite often on the motorway because I'll be doing a lot of motorway miles in this over the next 10 days. Into sport mode now. Heading to sport mode, immediately you feel the car's a bit more alert. Yeah, you get a nice pickup of speed. It's nothing game changing. It's 0 to 60 is still just 7.8 seconds, but it feels quick enough, it feels alert enough. And I think most importantly, it feels different enough from normal mode that you would consider using it if you wanted, I don't know, a bit of a spirited B-road blast. This car doesn't really feel like it's for B-road blasting per se, but it's nice to know that you can do it. The steering also weights up nicely, and it feels actually a lot more direct. So well played Genesis on that, and just having it in sports mode now has made me even more interested to see what happens with the Genesis GV60 Magma. Whenever that does come out, I think it'll be an interesting proposition, especially compared to the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. It'll be interesting to see. I'm keen to see how they differentiate it from that. And excuse me whilst I continue to enjoy the peace and serenity of this space.